Let's return to Diwali Bottoms, Texas. The diesel from the big GM bus droned along the dark highway through the flats of Indiana. The lights from other cars on the road catching the corrugated steel and illuminating it, giving meaning to the nickname Silverside. A small Zenith portable radio crackled on the overhead rack above the third row, its dial glowing amber in the dark bus. Someone having found a Chicago sports program cutting through the static. The voice of the announcer bled through the noise of the engine, thin and distant like a transmission from another world. And we'd be remiss here on WJN tonight if we didn't take a moment to talk about what happened this afternoon down in South Bend, Indiana, where the Southern Methodist Mustangs of Dallas, Texas did something that this broadcaster is still having some difficulty believing. Fred Benners, and you're going to want to remember that name, folks, completed 22 passes for 336 yards against a Notre Dame defense that came in today believing this was going to be a pleasant Saturday afternoon in northern Indiana. The final score, 27-20, and somewhere on a bus headed back to Dallas, Texas tonight, there are some very happy young men from the Southwest Conference. Someone towards the front of the bus let out a long, slow holler, and a few others answered it. Then the bus went quiet again. Just the diesel and the dark and the amber glow of that little radio. Steve reached back over the seat and handed Tom a couple of bennies. "How's the shoulder, my man?" He grunted as he pulled his flask loose from his duffel bag. He took a swig and swallowed his own pills before turning back to Tom with the flask. "Something to wash him down with." Tom grinned through the pain in the dark as he took the small metal flask. He tossed the pills back before putting it to his lips and feeling the whiskey burn down the lining of his throat like a steam engine. "Shoulder's wrecked," he half croaked. Steve laughed. His voice was a little nasally, and it came out in his genuine laugh. "My man, you were a wrecking ball out there tonight. I'm surprised the damn thing is still on." Tom chuckled and said nothing. Stared through the fog bus windows out into the nothingness of Indiana. When the bennies came on, everything felt bright, lighter. Hell, even his shoulder felt better. Everyone got a little louder. The accomplishments of the game became more mythical as the bus rolled through the night, and everyone's legend got a little longer. Tom and Steve had been friends since freshman year and played together all 4 years. The Levins had enough money to get Tom out of Diwali Bottoms and on to SMU, but they didn't have bucks like Steve's family. His dad was a Sabello, and it seemed like everyone in Dallas knew them. Steve always had money, pills. He was a decently tough fullback, but nowhere near as talented as Tom on the field. His dad had enough money and influence to keep him on the team, though. The bennies had worn off by the time they got south of Springfield. Steve's flask empty, conversation quiet and flat again. Sleep came for the victorious young men in those late hours as the Silverside bus pierced through the night. The morning sun danced across Tom's closed eyes as the bus rumbled into Dallas the next morning. He fought being awakened by tilting his head into the seat until they lurched to a stop in the parking lot near the field house. By the time he had collected his gear and stood up, Steve and most of the other linemen were already headed to their cars. The stiffness from being on that bus for the night threatened to keep him immobile as he carried his bag towards his car. The 49 Custom Ford had been a gift from the old man when he made the team. The maroon paint gleamed under the hot Dallas sun, making him squint just a little. Everything in Dallas was shiny this morning, except for Tom. The pills are great till they ain't, and the next morning, everything just feels gray. He grabbed the door handle, steadying himself a little as the familiar rumble of Steve's Oldsmobile overtook his auditory senses. As he turned his head, the Rocket 88, long and impossibly black in the sunshine, rolled alongside him as Les Paul and Mary Ford wailed about the height of the moon on KRLD from the car's speakers. Steve turned the knob down, leaned his head out towards Tom. "Go get your rest, my man. Tonight, we're going to be received like we deserve. My dad got us a reservation at Campese's, and then we'll head to Sapango for some honeys. Tom laughed as he opened his door. Don't you ever get enough? Tom was no prude, but he couldn't even think about girls with that monochromatic landscape playing in his head at the moment. Steve reached out and popped Tom on the hip as he was getting into the Ford. Enough? I'll have enough when I'm dead, Daddy. There may not be enough Bettys on Greenville for the two of us. We didn't beat Notre Dame so the hometown honeys could shake our hands. He grinned as he said it before mashing the gas pedal, leaving Tom questioning his own choices as the tires from the Oldsmobile left their own pound of flesh on the steaming concrete parking lot. The ice in the glass had given up by the time Tom reached for the phone. He'd been sitting with the number on the notepad in front of him long enough for the bourbon to quit being cold and start just being brown. He picked up the receiver and dialed. 3 rings before a voice answered that he didn't recognize. Smooth, unhurried. Good evening, Savello Properties. Tom cleared his throat. This is Tom Levins calling for Steve. Steve Savello. A pause just long enough. Mr. Savello will return your call tomorrow, Mr. Levins. Have a good evening. The line clicked. Tom set the receiver down and looked at the notepad. Outside the window, the East Texas dark had settled in completely over the equipment yard. Rows of idle machinery sitting in the dark like broke promises. He freshened his drink. Steve still sounded the same after 30 years when he called back the next morning. They'd rehashed a few fun evenings before he told Tom to come see him at his office in Preston Center. The office was impressive. Good carpet, real art on the walls. Steve's assistant had led Tom in and had him wait alongside him in the hardboard leather chairs. He hadn't offered his name, but seemed to know Tom already, offering no pleasantries, just silence as he sat upright in his own chair, facing straight ahead. Tom had begun to wonder if he'd made a mistake calling Steve after all this time, but his back was against the wall. In July of 1982, Penn Square Bank had collapsed and sent the East Texas oil field into a spiral with cruel indifference to the size or scope of the businesses it was gutting. Tom had spent the last year watching his receivables dry up while his debt payments remained as constant as taxes. There were no loans, and every rat was climbing over the edge of the boat, stepping on anyone that could help them reach the handrail. Tom was shaken from his internal tale of demise by Steve popping him on the shoulder as he walked into the room. His face still as jovial as a college football player, but the eyes betraying the mask, deep and dark, devoid of emotion. My man, can't believe you're here. Have you taken a meal yet? Let's have a bite after we wrap up this bit of business. Still wearing the false grin as he settled into the deep-backed leather chair behind his desk. The sun from the window glinted off the deep shine of the desk surface as Tom leaned forward. Before he could speak, Steve's still nameless assistant placed his hand on Tom's arm, not forcefully, but firm, as if a need to control the situation had materialized. The assistant spoke. Mr. Savello, I looked at the books he brought. He's over-leveraged across the board on equipment loans. Without funds or a complete reversal in the oil field, Levin's Rentals will be out of commission within just a few months. Tom winced at hearing his position explained so coldly. Steve spoke up. Tom, we're friends. Why'd you let the situation get so dire before you called? I could have helped before things got so tight. Tom swallowed with a dry throat before moving his arm loose of the assistant's grasp. He straightened the sleeve of his jacket with his left hand and did his best to trust his own voice to not sound like he felt. I thought I could release a few pieces and get it back in control, but son of a bitch in OPEC has the whole industry by the... Steve cut him off. Hey, my man. I don't know anything about oil and OPEC. All sounds like nonsense to me. I do have money, though. I know money. I do have that. I'm going to help you, brother. We go too far back. Tom relaxed back into the chair. His tension temporarily eased. I don't know how to thank you, brother. Things are going to turn around. This is just a hiccup. As soon as those Iranians he trailed off without finishing because Steve leaned forward, his brow furrowing, the congenial mask disappearing as he clasped his hands on the desk. Hey, man, I know you're going to pay me back. That's understood, my man. But Tom, I'm not a bank. I'm not in the company saving business. This loan is a favor, Tom. Favors have to be paid back on top of loans. The smile Steve displayed now resembled the rows of teeth Tom had seen on the sharks he'd caught in the Gulf of Mexico. The eyes cold, calculating for just a second before the contrived smile of friendship returned to his face. Tom felt goosebumps raise against the sleeve of his shirt. A bead of sweat gathered at his neck behind his collar as he mumbled out, Thanks, Steve. Of course. The assistant spoke as he stood to open the door to the office. I'll take care of the transfer, Mr. Sabello. Steve's mask was back now and fully engaged. Excellent. Now let's go get a bite to eat, brother. The salmon at Turtle Creek is divine. You're not going to want to go home. Tom stood and stared at the city through the window. He wasn't sure he wanted to go home, but it didn't have anything to do with fish. Truthfully, he just wasn't hungry. Tune in next week for more from Diwali Bottoms, Texas.